Hello everybody. I am currently on a 4-week road trip and I'm vlogging the experience, and I was going to put all my book content within that vlog, but I thought it might be more fun to do a totally separate everything I read while I road tripped for 4 weeks vlog. So that's what this is going to be. It is day 4 of the trip, and about 2-ish hours ago I finished the first book of the road trip. So the first book that I read was Call Me By Your Name. This was chosen as a prompt from my August TBR jar video, and I got it from the library. So I brought this along. If you don't know what this book is about, briefly, I will say it's about a teenage boy having this growing obsession with an older guy. So the main character is 17 and the guy that he is interested in is 24, and they are in Italy, and I believe it's translated from Italian actually. I could be totally mistaken. The whole story and the whole point of the book stays the same throughout the whole book. This is a poetic book, and it is a lot about words and their meanings and reading between the lines. It's a lot about urges and desires and kind of always feeling like you're on the cusp of something. Like, our main character writes very poetically, and he is a professor's son, so he's like, I understand these things about life and about love and about everything, but not in like a pretentious, annoying way. Like, he's actually quite self-deprecating, which is kind of a breath of fresh air in this sense of like, he's smart, but he doesn't believe he's as smart as he is, which is a nice combination. I do sometimes feel like it wanted to be deep and introspective and maybe didn't do the best job of it, and sometimes became a little bit cringy. But then I was like, is that the author's writing, or is that because it is a 17-year-old's voice and these are the things that he thinks, and he is a bit cringy sometimes? So the more that I've come to think about it, the more I'm like, that's actually probably what it is. Because if he was always smart and if it was always actually introspective, then it wouldn't read like a 17-year-old. You know, somebody new stays with his family every single year, so he's used to this, and usually he doesn't really care about them at all, and he's really good at reading people. So this new man comes into their house, and our main character is not so good at reading him, and it makes him uncomfortable. And I think that's part of where the interest comes from at the beginning, where he's like, I don't actually know what he's thinking, I don't know what his facial expressions mean. And so he seems to enjoy the challenge, I would say, of trying to read this person, but he doesn't say it as though he does enjoy it. He actually sounds quite annoyed and is like, what game are we playing today? But there is this unhealthy, unending obsession that kind of makes you feel eerie and icky a lot of the time, but also like you want to keep reading it because it is interesting. So it's a very interesting dynamic that I'm not used to in a book. I will also say a lot of books that list things I am known to hate, where it's like, please set up a scene and don't just tell us what's there. But this book lists things and tells us what's there while setting up the scene in a way that I really actually enjoyed. So instead of being like the gray buildings and the stone and the whatever, it explains the smells and the sights and the feelings in quite an interesting way. So I actually really enjoyed the writing itself in this book. I'm also purposely not saying our characters' names because I love the subtle name dropping in this book. You don't actually know anybody's names for the first little bit, and then the author just drops them in as though you knew them all along. And it's the same with like places and the time period that this is set in, and I find that very cool. There's always just this illusion of something, and like he's hinting at things and you don't actually know them, and sometimes you're convincing yourself that it's a certain way, but then it will just be like, here's his name, you knew it all along, but you didn't. So in the end, I am giving Call Me By Your Name 4.5 stars. I loved the writing in this book. I have so many quotes that I might need to buy a copy and annotate it. That's how much I liked it. So the first book is done. Now I am going to start the second book, which you are sitting atop of because I just need a little bit of height, and that is The Family Experiment by John Mars. This book I got from the library as well. It is on my 10 books I want to read in 2025. Let's cross it off the list. I'm going to start reading this now. Sorry about how loud it is. We are driving. I finished The Family Experiment 2 days ago already, and I did not update while I was reading it, and now I'm done and I've started my next book. I read it very quickly. It was a very easy book to read, perfect for a road trip. I do think that as I was reading it, I realized that there were a couple of books that came before it in like this unofficial series of books. One about a marriage act and one about like finding your perfect match through DNA, and maybe I would read that perfect match one because I did enjoy the writing. I do think there were maybe some parts that felt like they needed a little bit more editing in like the grammar side of things, and I'm a huge proponent for the Oxford comma, and this author is not a huge proponent of the Oxford comma. The story is about these couples going on this reality TV show where they have to be parents for 9 months, and the AI child grows pretty drastically through those 9 months, starting as a newborn and ending at 18 years old. So it's quite fast, but all of these people kind of have a background that comes into play while you're reading their stories and while they take place on this reality TV show. So it was interesting, and it brought in a lot of stuff that I didn't expect, and I had a guess the whole time, and I was like, oh, classic. And it's not quite how it went, which is good, but it still was a little bit cookie cutter maybe, the story itself. I already put the book away, which is why I'm not holding it, so hopefully I will have put it on the screen somewhere by now. So it was a good book. It wasn't a great book. I'm not sure yet if I will read the other ones. I don't think I will. You know what? I said I might, but I don't know if I'm interested enough to do that. So in the end, I gave The Family Experiment 3.5 stars. And then I started yesterday The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. Start with Tiffy, and she needs a new place to live, but she has a very low budget because she has a job that she loves, but that doesn't pay her a lot of money. Leon, who has a place and works evenings, and he is renting out his bed when he's not there, saying someone can be at the house from 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. the following day, and I won't see them. And he needs a little bit of extra cash because he is trying to pay his brother's lawyer. It starts in February, we're now in July, and they still haven't met, and they're writing so many like little letters to each other, and I absolutely love the dynamic of this book. So I'm not super far yet, like here, but I'm really enjoying it, and I needed something cute after reading like a literary fiction and a thriller. I was like, I just need a cute little romance. So I'm reading yet another library book, and I'm really enjoying it. I will say, Leon has a girlfriend, and they're not flirting. So, like, he's not doing anything untoward yet. Girlfriend seems like a problematic person, and it always causes me in books like this to be like, why are you together when you're not giving me any redeemable character traits? It seems like it's very black and white. She's not a good person. So that's my only problem right now, is I don't like books when you're like, there's no obvious reason for you to be together. Maybe don't make this person so obviously bad. Give them a little bit of gray and make it a little bit of a moral dilemma. I don't know. Anyway, so that's my update there. Hopefully you heard that because it is so loud in this car right now. Hi, I finished The Flat Share a few days ago already, back when I was in Eagle Plains, and now we're just about to leave Inuvik, where we've been for a few days. So I think it's time to talk about it. I really liked this book. I am sticking to my opinion that I love the unique setup of the romance and that it was carried out in a very unique way. I really like our male main character, Leon. I think he is wonderful. I love him so much. I also really like Tiffy, but I think that she is more universal, what you get from a romance, for like a quirky, dresses how she wants character, and sometimes the quirkiness got a little bit over the edge. I feel like some books who do the over-the-top character, like larger than life, it gets a little bit too forced sometimes, and I struggled with that a little bit. But for the most part, it was just the right amount of quirky from Tiffy. But it was just so funny because you were in her perspective and how she described herself. And like, she's like, oh, I have no fashion sense and I just wear whatever I want. And I know that people think that it's ugly, but I like it. Maybe I'm feeling it from her self-consciousness, whereas every time we were on Leon's perspective and the people were talking to him and how he was feeling, he loved it and didn't think it was that weird, and it was very Tiffy, which is normal. So I don't even know what I'm even complaining about, but it just was a little bit much. But I also like that we had the dichotomy of how she describes herself versus how Leon and her friends see her. The other thing that maybe was a negative is Leon's point of view is very choppy writing, and it's written kind of like a play where it's like me, and then it's what he said, and then it's her, and then it's what she said. I'm gonna try to find an example because he just skips subjects and like proper nouns. Can barely move without being confronted with sunburnt skin and or pleasant body heat emanating from man in suit. Am on my way back from visit to Imperial War Museum research room. Sometimes it was really annoying and sometimes I liked how it flowed, so it just kind of went back and forth. I think I just would prefer a book without that though. Like, it's one thing to give your characters different voices, which is super important so you always know who you're reading from, but it's another thing to make it like choppy and at times difficult to read and like not proper English. I did really like their love story. I loved the notes that they were leaving for each other and their growth from friends into romantic partners. I thought that that was really well done, and there is a bit of a deeper issue in both of their lives that needs to be settled and that they need to overcome, and I always love that aspect of a romance book that just has a little bit more depth. I gave this 4 stars. I really liked it. Then when I finished that, I started Legends and Lattes, which is a cozy romance, and I am only on chapter 4. I'm just about to start chapter 4. I am finding this difficult to get into because even now it is like 6 p.m. and we're here in our accommodation for the rest of the evening with not much to do, and I don't want to read it because I'm not getting excited thinking about it. And I don't know if that's because I just need to push through a little bit more and get to the point where there's a little bit more depth, but we are leaving again tomorrow from Inuvik, driving back to Eagle Plains, which is all stuff that I've seen before. And it's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but that does give me like 6+ hours of time to do stuff, and that might be reading. I'll let you know if I keep going with that one or not. I hope I do. It is cute. It's cute and low stakes, which I knew going in. So at least I'm prepared for that. Okay, I am about halfway through Legends and Lattes, and I'm enjoying it much more than I was when I was only like 30 pages in. I will start by saying the perfect cozy fall book, and it's amazing because if you look where we are, in Northwest Territories, it is fall right now, so this is the perfect book to be reading for this. The reason it is not the perfect book is because people just have lattes on tap, and I love a latte, and I do not currently have access to a latte, and all I want is a latte. It is one of my favorite things. It's my favorite part of every day is my morning latte, and reading about it over and over and over, rough. Secondly, there is a character Thimble who is baking and baking and baking and baking all these wonderful new things, and I'm like, I just want to bake, and I also cannot bake for the next like 2 weeks. As much as it brings the fall vibes, I think this probably would have been better to read at home, maybe once I got home and could make myself a latte. I would say the setup in like the first, I don't know, 8 chapters was very like the story in an elaborate board game or something. Like when some of the board games we play have these elaborate stories and this character building, and she has this salvert stone, like those board games where you're trying to get the stone from her or something. Now where I am for like the past few chapters, it is very much like a cozy game. Good pizza, great pizza. There is also the coffee one. I didn't enjoy that as much, so I didn't play it as long. But they just keep like building their menu and renovating their store and doing more and more and more. So I'm having a lot of fun. And as for the story itself, still quite low stakes, but there are some things happening with a couple of characters, and I should hold this. This is so shaky right now. There are a couple of characters that are coming to our main character Viv and creating some more stakes than what we've had so far. It's still not like high stakes, and she is an orc and consistently is like, I can handle myself. Like, what are they doing? Like, I know what I'm doing. And now there is someone else. So this other character on the cover, her name is Tandri, and I really, really like her. And her and Viv's chemistry is wonderful already. They became fast friends immediately. She kind of has a history with someone in the town who she doesn't like very much. And so that is kind of causing problems there, but we don't have anything from Tandri's point of view. So there's some secrets there, and she's quite vague about her history. So it's interesting. There's enough going on that I'm staying interested, and we have hours of driving before us for the rest of the day, so I'm sure that I will finish this today, and I will let you know how I feel. But I am just very happy that my thoughts have improved since yesterday when I updated you. It's been a few days. I don't remember when I last updated on this book, but I know that I finished it the same day and that I still really enjoyed it, and I think that it is a wonderful, cozy fall read. The characters stayed interesting. Everybody made choices that made sense with their characters. I was expecting a few more twists than I got from this book, but that's okay. I think that's part of the nice thing about a cozy fantasy is that it doesn't really have any twists. You don't really find yourself gasping, but it is fun and it is cozy, and I'm giving it 4 stars. And I think that I will read the second one next fall and just kind of, I don't know how many there's going to be, but I think right now there's only 2, and I'll just kind of keep that going. So I had fun with that. And then I started the book that you were sitting upon, Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, which is the 3rd book in the Mistborn trilogy saga, because I think there's actually 7 altogether, and I am in the middle of chapter 17, and I am very happy to be back with these characters. It started immediately. I was like kind of hesitant to keep reading it because I thought there would be a little bit of a delay in getting it going, because I think I found that with the second book, but this one starts immediately. The intricacies are there. I am not struggling to remember what happened last time because I think I read it just like a couple of months ago, if I remember correctly. I said that Legends and Lattes reminded me of a cozy video game, and this reminds me more of like a Zelda video game because they're right now going to all of these different locations to try to expand their map. You know, the monsters come alive at night, and it's very much a video game all over again, which I love. I am slowly getting little bits of information that I know will lead to something big because that's how it's been for the first 2 books. It's also interesting because I'm getting perspective from characters who were in the first 2 books that we didn't get their perspective, and now we are, which is a little bit weird. I don't like those parts as much because I don't like those characters as much. With the exception of one, actually, I don't think we got a lot, and now we are, and I really like that part, so maybe I have to eat my own words. It is almost 800 pages, and we have about a week left of our trip, so I think this might be like the second last book I read, so I'm not going to rush it and read it when I don't feel like it, but right now I really feel like it, so I'm hoping Zach doesn't ask me to drive too much today so that I can keep reading, but if he does, we are also listening to Fall of Giants by Ken Follett, which I've read a couple of times and listened to a couple of times. It's new for him, and I actually really like those books. I will keep you updated. Book update. I'm about halfway through. Still loving it. Still only have one character. Don't laugh at me. That makes me not want to do it. Still loving it. Still only have one character whose part I'm kind of skimming through, and at this point it's because it feels a little bit predictable from his part, though I've thought that about these books before and been completely wrong. So maybe I'm wrong about what's happening, but I think it might be an Anakin situation. That's all I'll say about that. But otherwise, I really do enjoy the pacing of this. I love the parts of it. My favorite character's point of view, we get like once every 5 or 6 or 7 chapters, so it's not enough. So every time I get it, I eat it up because I just want to keep reading about him. I think it's going to come back to they're all going to be together very soon, which is always the best parts of these books, because right now, like all of the other ones, everybody's very spread out. When I'm switching from perspectives, I'm like trying to remember where they are and what their goal in the book is right now, which is fine, keeps my brain moving. It's also teaching me a lot about the magic system that we still don't even know till now, because they're learning more about the magic system, and in book 3 that's kind of crazy thing to do, but I love it because I am now even more interested in learning more and wondering why things work the way that they work. It's the same as all the other books in the series, where it's like these parts from someone's diary at the beginning that you're getting a lot of actual important information from. So sometimes I am going back and trying to find the ones that taught me something that come up in the actual book and trying to relate them to each other, and it gets a little bit confusing, which is fine. I don't go into these books thinking that they're going to be an easy read, so I was prepared for that. It is still a lot of flipping back and forth and trying to remember what I looked at before. And there's also like 1, 2, 3, 4 maps in the beginning of this book that I haven't even looked at, because I'm just assuming that he's going to keep describing it the way that he is and that it will make sense in my mind without having to flip back to the maps. I don't know if that's ignorant, but I can visualize it, I think, without seeing the far apart map. I think the first one, it's hard to say, this might actually be my favorite so far, because I think in the first book, a lot of the fights were hard to follow, And in this one, they're way easier to follow, partly because we understand the magic system, and partly because they're just being described in a more fluid way, and it's not taking up 10 pages in a row, it's like 2 to 3. Halfway through, I'm gonna keep reading probably most of the driving that we do. Finished Mistborn. Let me tell you, that is 2 out of the 3 books that I absolutely cried at. The first one and now the third one. The second one, not so much. I gave you an update halfway through yesterday. I finished it yesterday, same day at 10:30 p.m. Sorry, we just went for a little hike. He's a little tired. He's a panter. This book, phenomenal. This was such a good book. I was thinking 4.5 the whole way through, and then the last this much, I was like, this is a 5-star book. Easy. Everything in this book is unreliable. Everybody's point of view is unreliable. Everything you think you know is true could easily not be true. And it makes sense if it's not true, and it makes sense if it is true. So you're just guessing the entire time, and you're never right. I did guess one big thing, but I think it was so overt and late in the book that I was stupid not to get it earlier. But that's just the beauty of his writing, because it's like, well, no, there's no way, but there is a way, you know? It's just such a strange place to be when you don't feel like you can believe anything that other people believe as you're switching between multiple characters every chapter. I don't even know who my favorite character is. I can't say, because there's so many characters who leave and come back throughout the whole series that maybe you think are there and maybe you don't think are there, so I don't want to say who's here in this book. So that was a 5-star book, easily. Now, we have 2 days left of the trip, today and tomorrow, with still not much service. So, I'm choosing between the last 2 library books that I have, because I should bring them back. One is literary fiction coming of age, I think. I don't know much about it. I don't really want to know much about it. And the other is romance. And I think I'm going to go with the romance, because Mistborn is a little bit heavy and a lot happened. And so romance feels like the right place to be. So I'm going to read A Gentleman's Gentleman by T.J. Alexander. Never read anything by this author, but this was on my list of books I wanted to read this year. So this is next. Didn't even give you an update or a recap about A Gentleman's Gentleman. I finished it yesterday, about an hour before we got back home. I also can't hold it because I already brought it to the library. I went to town today, and one of the first things I did was drop off all my books. I'll start by saying I definitely made the right choice going from Mistborn saga to a romance. I was so happy just to be given these characters at face value for the most part, and this plot and these themes that just were kind of comfortable after reading something where I couldn't trust anybody, to go to something where everybody was very honest and kind. I loved our characters. There's one character who I feel like I wish we got more from her, which is a little bit sad. I actually thought that something else would happen there, but I really liked this book. It is set in 1811. The Regency vibes are there. It is so much fun just for that fact. I love a romance set in the 19th century. Christopher is an earl, and he doesn't have very much help. He has a bare bones staff, a cook and a butler, and he's going to London because his parents died, and I guess in his father's will it said something about you need to be married by a certain age to get your inheritance. So he's like, crap, I gotta go to London. I gotta be part of the, what's it called? I gotta be part of this season and meet somebody. But he's gay, so he's like, they never actually say that, but he's attracted to men. Maybe I'll just say that. So he wants to be upfront about it, which is the best part. Right from the get-go, Christopher is honest, and he's like, I'm not gonna deceive a woman into a loveless marriage. I want it to be somebody maybe who likes women, or somebody who doesn't want to get married and doesn't want to have kids, because that would be my favorite kind of person to be with, where we can just be friends forever. And he wants to be honest about it, which I love. There's also this wonderful origin story for Christopher, which comes out like by chapter 4 or 5 pretty early, but I think reading it is really important. The way that it's delivered to the reader is really well done, so I'm not going to talk about that too much. His origin story, I think, is meant to be read and not meant to be regurgitated by me in between. So he's going to London and he needs a, as they would say in Downton Abbey, valet. He needs to hire a valet. I feel like I need to say valet because of Downton Abbey. And he is attracted to him. He's like, this man is one of the most attractive men I've ever seen. And they go to London together and the tension buildup is amazing. I also really loved that it was one perspective. It was from Christopher's perspective the whole time, and I think that that's very important for this book. You really get to know him, and I think it's wonderful not to be in Harding, the valet's point of view. I think it was really well done. I'm really happy with this book. So it was a great one to end on for the trip. So I'm giving it 3.5 stars, which now that I'm talking about it feels low, but I think it's hard to go from a wonderful 700-page 5-star book to a romance that doesn't have, you know, nothing underlying. Everything's pretty straightforward. I think it's hard for me to rate a romance more than 3.5. I feel like this author has a few more books and I would like to read them just to see if this is a common theme in their books, because I really enjoyed it. So I'm gonna leave you there. I hope that you enjoyed it and come back next week for another video. Bye.